Hey, Tawanda. How are you? Couldn't sleep after watching Diane and Wendy's stream. Thinking about, you know, how brave she was to get up on that panel today. Yeah, I'm okay. I just was thinking about, you know, how brave she was. I don't know if I could have done that, but she did. I mean, some of what she was talking about actually really, my heart just went out to her. I had to be pretty hard for her to do. Sometimes you wonder, you know, why people, you know, don't think about people's real life on here and what people are going through. Hi, Jana. Aw, do you have anything to take for it? I know that sucks. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I just finished watching. I was telling Tawanda, I just finished watching Diane and Wendy's stream, and wow, it was like, it was, it was hard to watch. Hi, Diana, especially when you have, a child that is in recovery. Um, I have two kids, a daughter and a boy. And my daughter, she's got a great job. She makes a lot of money. She's got all her shit together and stuff. And then there's my son. Yeah. Um, they're both raised the same. You know, my husband, had a good job. They were both raised. We're not drug addicts or alcoholics, but you wonder, you still blame yourself. You wonder what you did that if you contributed to, you know, your child being a drug addict. Exactly. Um, yeah. Well, I didn't know a lot about, you know, addictions before this happened. I guess I kind of like kept my blinders on and didn't want to see what was right in front of me with him. I just kept going back to when he was a little boy because that's how you see them. You always see them like they're little boys. You can't make everything all right. Hey, Ben. especially when they're all grown up. But I wish I knew more. He is doing good. He looked so good tonight. His birthday tomorrow. It's just that I know he's gonna struggle. And that's what scares me. I mean, he's gotten over, he's in recovery and everything, but I know he has to struggle. I know it's hard for him. Watching or listening to Science Girl thing is hard. Yeah. Oh, he knows he's loved. He does know that part. It's just that you do feel guilty when you're a mother. I know. I know I do look at them. I really look at them and I feel like really hopeful when I see how well they're doing. Not really sad. Well, I was kind of sad for Science Girl, Alicia, because that had to be hard for her. I remember when before he went into rehab, how every time the phone would ring, my heart would stop because I would think, this is the call we're gonna get. This is what they're gonna tell me he's dead. And I still I still think about that. I was quiet most of the night when I was watching her or listening to her because I couldn't imagine if if I ever lost somebody in my life that I would be able to talk about it as well as she did and as articulate as she is. Because Amanda, by the way, I'm so proud of you. I think what you're doing is awesome. I shouldn't be crying. My son is in recovery. I talked to him today. He was camping. But I still worry about, everybody talks about how they relapsed and relapsed and relapsed. And I know it's a struggle for him. I know it's a struggle for him. I can feel it. Yeah, I know. And being that, you know, I've never had to suffer with an addiction myself. I've never been addicted to anything. But um so I can't put myself in his spot.
if you need someone to speak with, you can always call me. I could come up there if you needed to. Thank you, Confetti Nola. I was just, I thought I was all cried out until tonight. When I talk to him, I don't cry because I don't want him to see how worried I am about him. Sure, Alicia. Didn't know that was you. Everybody probably thinks I'm a old freaking blubbering baby. I don't know, just listening to Alicia maybe. My heart just broke for her. I just can't even imagine. Hi, Alicia.
Hey. All right?
Sorry. I gotta
All
put my
right.
earbud.
It's all right. That feeling, and you just described that feeling that my parents had and that I had, where you get that phone call. They're either in
Right.
jail. They're either in jail, or they're, you never know what you're gonna get. A call from the hospital, call from the coroner, or the call from the jail.
Well, before he went into recovery,
Mm-hmm.
every single time my phone would ring,
Mm-hmm.
my heart would stop. It would
Yeah.
just stop.
Right.
Because I thought that would be the call. And you're the sister, and I know when my daughter called me the last time when I finally had to cut him off and not give him any more money,
Mm-hmm.
she said, Mom, and she was heartbroken. She said, Mom, if you keep giving him money, you're going to kill my brother.
Yeah.
When you were up there talking tonight, you reminded me so much of my daughter when she called me, because it really affects the whole family,
It does.
And yeah, I don't know, just all came out in a wave tonight.
Right. Just know that, he's strong enough to know that he needs help,
Yeah,
and he's now seeking help and therapy.
right.
And they're not going to let anything happen to him. Is he in a
Right.
patient
He's in
therapy
a
where he's
Yeah,
going to
he's in
go
a
there?
he went from rehab to the recovery place where they all live. Like,
Yeah, it's like a
they all
halfway
live
house in a
after.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where he is now. But he
Mhm.
was out this weekend. He went camping this weekend. His birthday
Okay.
is tomorrow.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
As
So,
long as he sticks with the program, and if
yeah.
are they giving him a medication, or is it
He's not
kind of therapy?
he's just in therapy. He went cold turkey. He just went off it. He
Uh huh.
can't he said to me, he said, Mom, I can't drink alcohol. I can't do anything. He said, because
Right.
I'm not, he says, I'm one drink away from being where I was before.
Hmm.
And yeah. But what scares me right now, Alicia, is because I hear people say, well, I relapsed 5 times, I relapsed 7 times. This
Hmm.
is the first time he's been in rehab. And that's what scares me, you know, because this is the first time, and I'm scared about the relapse part of it.
So
I'm
this is
scared
his
about him
first time
really.
ever getting help.
Pardon me?
This is his first time, ever getting any kind of
His
help.
his very first time. Very first time.
Strong enough to know he needs it. That's a big
Yeah.
step.
Yeah, it is. Because, he kept denying it, denying it, denying it. And
Yeah.
here's why I felt guilty. Because I was praying that he would go to jail. I was hoping he would go to jail, because you had to go into rehab. He had to go himself. He had to make the decision to go, and he wouldn't go, and he wouldn't go, and he wouldn't go. And so I would pray, please, like, let him get arrested. I don't care for what, just so he could get clean in
Right.
jail. And for a mother to think, to wish that upon their kid is like really hard.
Mhm.
You feel guilty for even thinking that, but I couldn't think of how else, we could help them.
Mhm.
So
I think that's the best. I would think that would be the best deal, because a lot of people, don't have $50,000 to drop just like that, for
Right.
patient
Oh,
therapy,
yeah.
whatever. So jail, get them off the streets, get them, where they're not going to be operating a moving vehicle and risking other people's lives, their own lives, and then get them into jail to let them sober up and realize that there's an issue. And then sometimes it depends on which state you live in, but they'll put them in a detox program,
Yeah.
straight from jail, and then they're able to go to
Right.
rehab. Some places do it. You have to use,
Yeah.
sometimes there's a waiting list.
Well, I don't know about your brother, but my son was doing drugs at work.
Mhm.
He was just hanging. The only people he hung out with were drug dealers and drug addicts.
Yeah.
Like, that's and he was in denial. He would always say no. I would say, are you okay? You okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. He would just be fine. He'd say he was fine, but he would be like running around like he couldn't sit still. You knew something was wrong with him, but I
Mhm.
just didn't want to think it was what it was. And my daughter sat me down one day, and she said, "Mom, he's a drug addict. You have to accept it." And he would call me, and he would ask for money for rent, and he would ask for money, like it was his son's birthday. So
Mhm.
I sent him money for his son's birthday. He took the money and he bought drugs with him instead
Yeah.
of getting his son, having a birthday for his son. I was so disappointed.
Mhm.
He went to the dollar store and got a few little things for his little boy, and the rest of the money he took and bought drugs with. But his little boy loves him so much that he was happy with that, what he got, because he loves his dad,
Mhm.
And but it broke my heart that,
I would tell
he
my mom the
just,
same thing. Don't give them cash, because you know where it's
yeah,
going.
he it went up his nose.
Mhm.
That's where it went. So
Right. And
but
with
it
my
was
mother,
really, really hard on my daughter,
Mhm.
because my daughter and him are 13 months apart, 14 months apart. So they're like, I don't know how close you were with your brother, but they
2 years
were always
apart.
like, okay. So they were like 1 year apart and just close, always been really close. So, it was like he was tearing her, and she was to the point too, because she was helping him too. We were both helping him. We were
Mhm.
both enabling him. And then finally she sat me down and she said, Mom, you can't. If you keep sending him money, you're going to kill him. We're going to find him dead in an alley. And so the hardest thing I ever had to do was say no to him, because
Right.
he wanted money. And oh my God, Alicia, he called me every name in the book. It was just horrible. The names he called me and the things he said to me were just, I was the worst mother in the world. I never cared about him. I didn't love him.
My mom got the same treatment.
Oh my
I
God,
think
it
that
breaks.
comes with the territory, right?
Yeah, it's hard to hear though. It's
It
just
is.
like, if you cared about me, you'd give me money, you'd help me. But
How about if I cook you a nice warm meal?
yeah, no, he didn't
That's
want
what a
that.
motherly kind of, and you
Oh,
don't need money. My
well,
mom got
even
to the point where she was saying, okay, what do you need? I'll go buy it.
Yep. Well, the last thing that we gave him is he wanted money to put minutes on his phone because he had one of those throwaway phones, and he wanted us to give him the money for that, and we didn't. We sent it to my daughter, and she got the minutes for him and put them on his phone because we couldn't even do that. We couldn't even do that for him because if he got any kind of money he was to the point before he went into rehab, he was dumpster diving to get money to find things to sell to get drugs. Like that's how bad it was.
Oh yeah, it gets to that point, or they're stealing from family members.
Yeah.
It gets criminal, and because they're desperate to chase that high.
Yeah.
Same thing with my brother. He stole from my dad, stole from Parks, stole from me, wrote checks out in my mom's checkbook, took the checks and wrote them out, and did all kinds of horrible things just to get money to buy drugs.
Yeah.
And my mom she would do the cuddling a little bit and pay, buy cigarettes and beer for him, buy groceries, bring them dinner. But okay, you're buying your kids cigarettes and beer. He's going to take that money that he would be spending on cigarettes and beer, and he's going to go get a hit of heroin with it. Actually, that's what it turned, But if you cook your kid a nice warm meal and let him know he's loved and he has a place to come to get clean, there's no harm in that.
Yeah.
And
and he knew he was loved, but he would be just horrible. He was so horrible to his sister. He was so horrible to me, like really mean. I mean, mean. Yeah. I wish you were dead. Mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. Like, if you can't help me, I wish you would drop dead, or what the hell? He would say the same thing. Oh my God, he was mean to his sister too. Like she took a lot of crap from him. She would sometimes she'd say, "Mom, I just can't be around him. I can't be around him." She wouldn't even allow her kids to go to his house. She got hold of his ex and said, don't let his son go there because it's all there is drug dealers and drug addicts. So at the end, towards the end, he was going to lose his son because she was going to go to court and just get full custody because they had half and half custody.
Joint custody.
Yeah, they had joint custody. And I know he loves his son. He does love his son because since he's gotten clean, it's been a lot better. But I mean, all that he had at his home was drug addicts. So my daughter went to his ex, and we sent her money for our grandson because we couldn't send him money. It was terrible, but we couldn't send him money for Christmas or anything. And he was used to us sending him money for Christmas for his son. We sent it to her because we couldn't trust him.
Right.
We were at the point where we couldn't trust him. We could not trust him with any money. It was horrible.
Right. Same thing with my addiction. If I got cash in my hands at the time, which, I owned a business, I had a lot of cash that would come in and out. I would sometimes spend it on gambling. I lost everything twice. So every addiction's kind of like the same way. You spend all your money on that addiction. Everything about life is that addiction. You live to survive that addiction.
Do you think it's hereditary? Because my grandfather drank himself to death.
We just discussed that on Diane's channel.
Yeah, because my grandfather drank himself to death. He died at 57. My father was an alcoholic. My sister's an alcoholic. My son's a drug addict.
Okay, so your father, you're talking about your father?
My grandfather drank himself to death. He died at 57.
Okay.
So 57 years old.
What about your grandma?
My dad, that was my grandfather who drank himself to death. My dad was an alcoholic and died at 63 years old. He died of a heart attack, but it was because he was an alcoholic. He just,
Your mom?
My mom never did. My mom didn't drink at all. Nothing. She didn't even drink wine. She wouldn't even drink wine with a meal. Like nothing. Well, but my sister. My sister's an alcoholic. So, but I'm not. So, but my son is a drug addict.
It's passed through the gene pool. Yeah. Addiction is hereditary. It is. It's genetic. I mean, it's passed through either the mother or father parent, you know, whatever parent, and then your genes are shared with your kids, and even grandparents. So because of addiction, I mean, your child, your offspring would, you know, it's a 50% chance that they're going to be addicted. You have mutated genes, like, you know, with diseases and codes. You know, that's 100% chance you're going to get that. You're going to have a genetic mutation. That's like Huntington's disease. You know, if that's in your gene code, there's 100% chance you're going to have it. You're going to have it no matter what. But with addiction, you would stand a 50% chance, okay? And then there's other variables that take place. That other 50% is more nurturing and making sure they're in an environment that you can kind of mold them away from that. Do you know what I mean? Environmental factors play a role in addiction as well. It's not just genetic. So yeah, it is genetic. You had addicts in the family, and his addiction just went on a different path. Instead of alcohol, it turned into a mixture.
Any kind of thing. Yeah, any kind of drug he could get. And they told him to think of it like in rehab. They said, think of it as this. If you start again, think of it like you're like allergic. If you take even just think that you can just take a little bit, you're gonna start all over again. It's like he said, Mom, I can't even. He says, I won't even drink a beer. Like he won't even drink a beer. Like, and that wasn't his addiction. His addiction is drugs. But you know, he can't be around anything like that. Anything
even
at
if
all.
it's prescribed to you, like if it like a narcotic or whatever, benzoid or whatever, if you have to buy it off of someone else because you took it all already, that's an addiction. If you can't survive without it, you can't function, your body can't physically function without it, then you're addicted. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know, because they take it and they just think that since they can function on it, that they're normal. But that's not the case. Without it, they would not be functioning properly. You know, they would be withdrawing. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of addicts don't want to face that. My brother was one of them. Oh, I could go build pools, you know, and function, and I'm normal. No, you're not. The second you get off that drug, you're going to be withdrawing. You know,
what really scares me is when my son was really in the midst of, in the mix of his addiction. He was working construction and he was hanging off 20-story buildings. You know what I mean? Like he was working high as a kite because he was doing drugs during his lunch hour. It was going up his nose, and he would be, you know, working on them. And that's what my daughter said. She said, Mom, I'm scared he's going to fall off a building one of these days because he's working 20 stories up. And, you know, he had no fear. But yeah, and he got fired from every job he had because of drugs, because he would get caught. He could only work under the table because every job that you get now, you have to take a piss test. So he could never pass one. So he had to work in jobs where you didn't have to. You would work for jobs where you got paid under the table. You know what I mean? But he would lose all his jobs because he wouldn't show up for work. Because with a drug addict, you know, when the drugs are more important than the job, they just work long enough to make enough money to get the drugs, and then they're sick, so they're not going to work.
Well, when you're coming down from a coke, you know, a coke high, it can be pretty intense because that's a stimulant. Unlike heroin, you know, it's more of a downer. You know, it recodes the brain. it just puts you into like a deep sense, you know.
Right.
But Coke is going to make you feel like a hero. You go through a euphoric state, but it's more like intense pleasure. You feel kind of like superior to other people. You feel like you've accomplished everything. So a lot of people can function when they're addicted to cocaine. There's a lot of, if you notice, musicians that take cocaine. Almost every rock and roll artist ever did cocaine. And then they have a lot of, like, you know, actors in Hollywood that have done it. You can function with it, but it's the more you get tolerant, you want to do more and more and more, and it makes you really sick. And then when you come down from it, you're really sick. You're not as sick as like when you would come down from heroin, but you feel really shitty the next day. So functioning on something when you're coming down and you're out of money, I think would be really, really stress.
Well,
Like,
my son would get like where he couldn't sit still. I mean, I literally could not sit still. He would be running around his apartment. He would be going. My daughter would say, "Mom, he's got all this junk in his apartment and he's like making this and making that. He can't stop. It's like he can't stop." And then
Peter.
And then when he would come down, he wouldn't get off the couch. Like he would be laying around and then he would get dope sick.
Right.
And, you know, that's when it's really starting to get bad. And then that's when he got desperate for the money. And that's when he would ask us for money. And it was always for something. He needed money to pay his rent. He needed money to pay his car. He needed money to pay his insurance. And I was like, so dumb. I would give him money. And the last time when I had to say no to him was the hardest time for me. I couldn't even say no to him. I had to make my husband say no to him.
Right.
Because I know I would have caved. I would have, because, you know, if I had heard him start crying or whatever, I would have given him the money. So it had to be. Pardon me?
Would you let him live with you?
Oh, yeah, if you wanted to. But the thing is, that didn't work for my daughter because he went to live with my daughter and he wouldn't pay her. All his money went to drugs. He wouldn't pay his rent. You know, he wouldn't help her or pay for food or anything. All he'd pay for is his drugs. So actually, if he came to live with me, it wouldn't work, I don't think, because, you know, I think he would relapse faster if he came to live with me. Okay. I think he would. I really do. Mm-hmm. I think he needs to be in that recovery place for a while before he's ready to do anything. And even my daughter said that.
4 months of rehab and a halfway house. And then she was clean. She kicked it.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? The good thing about it is that it didn't, like, you don't really hear of many deaths from cocaine. Okay. But because they're cutting it with fentanyl, now makes it extra dangerous, very dangerous. You know, and when you're snorting something up, it's like direct, you know, besides shooting. Smoking, it's a little bit different. You're chasing it, but it's not like a snort where, I've seen them, you know, have their nose just blood's coming out profusely.
Right.
And, you know,
and Alicia, honestly, I don't know how honest he's been with us about all the drugs he's taken. I know he took all kinds of drugs, but to this day, I'm not 100% sure. I know exactly what he could have been taking heroin. I don't know.
Does he sleep a lot?
I don't know if he does anymore. When he was doing cocaine, he was up. He would stay up all night. He didn't sleep a lot, but since he's gone off, like he's been in rehab and stuff, he's actually sleeping at night where he didn't before. He would be up all night. Like, was
he ever like when you were around? Was he zoning in and out, like just like subconsciously? You'd be talking to him and then he would just fall asleep, or
no? Actually, what it was he couldn't sit still. He would always have to be doing something. Like it was just like he needed to be be moving all the time, all the time,
Yeah.
all the time, all the time.
Uh-huh.
Like and almost have a twitch. Like if he wasn't moving, he could sit down for a minute and then he'd have to get up and he'd have to go. Like I don't know. I would say, will you sit down? Just
Yeah.
sit down. And he couldn't. He couldn't.
When I tried that with that doctor, and he had the purest form of coke, it was almost like a little yellowish, but it was uncut. And I didn't sleep for 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
So you want to become a hero. You clean everything, your house, you'll rearrange.
Oh my God, that's another thing is he not only cleaned his own house, he would go to my daughter's house and clean her house.
Yeah.
He just couldn't sit still. Like it was crazy. Pardon me?
You have anxiety, you panic.
Oh yeah. I actually had to call an ambulance one time because he thought he was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And
it'll make you feel that way. Yeah.
It was him coming down from drugs, but he was scared he was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
He was dope sick is what it was. He was dope sick.
Yeah, you feel like shit. Not as bad as you do when you're withdrawn from heroin, but it's pretty, the intense from coming down from coke is pretty, it's a horrible feeling.
Well, I know he did crack. I know he did coke, but I don't know what else he did. I don't know if he's ever been completely 100% honest with me or told me exactly. Maybe one of these days we'll just sit down and talk about it. But right now, I don't want to.
Like he wants to be upper, and
yeah.
I know a few people like that. That prefer that type of drug rather than doing a downer where they're going to be kind of like out of it, constantly kind of just talking really like this and just laid back. But drugs affect everyone differently. And my brother would get like that. And then he started functioning on it. And he was actually taking the heroin and going to work.
That's what my son was doing.
Yeah.
And he was working 20 stories up on a building, like, high as a kite. Because he was like, he was
alert.
Well, I guess, I know, but that scares the crap out of me that he would be like, snorting cocaine during his lunch hour and then going up 20 stories and hanging off a building, like as a mother thinking that.
Yeah. I would worry about that. I would worry, and just in general, knowing that my son's addicted to something and that I can't help him because he won't allow me to.
No,
it would affect me. It would.
Well, he would never admit it.
No,
I think Jason, I would say, Jason, what is wrong with you? Tell me, talk to me. I'm fine.
Found out,
and I would say, oh my God, he lost so much weight. I don't know if your brother lost something. Like he lost so much weight. He was like a skeleton. I mean, he was like a skeleton. His clothes just hung off him. I'm like, and he would get mad when I pointed it out. You need to eat or something, Jason. You're skin and bones.
Well, it does make you lose weight. That's why a lot of
people, my God,
it gives you energy and it makes you lose weight.
He also looked older, like he looked like 10 years older than what he should have looked like. Now his face is filled out more and he looks better. He looks at least healthy. He doesn't look like so skinny, and even in his color, I don't know if your brother was like his color was off.
Yeah, his color was a little off and he wasn't taking care of himself and he started losing weight.
Right.
Anytime Adrian went to jail, and I could show you a picture of what he looked like fresh out of jail, he had about 20 pounds on him and you could tell that he was healthy. His face was filled out. You couldn't see the wrinkles as much. And his body, like he looked like he was a bodybuilder when he would come out of jail. The second he started using, I could tell what he was on and what he was taking by his change in attitude or his weight. I knew exactly what he was taking. And when he was using heroin, he looked about 30 years older and he would never take care of himself.
I know it ages them. It just ages them. Did he ever ask to live with you?
He lived with me probably about 15 years ago, and I wanted to kill him. I did.
Yeah, my daughter was the same.
Yeah, I
My
wanted to kill him.
daughter was the same.
I don't
She
allow
would
anyone to smoke in my house. And I told him, don't do it. My son was really young at the time. And I said, don't do it. And he took a joint, inhaled it, and blew it in my face and my son's face.
Oh, God.
He put a machine gun to my head.
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah, that didn't end very well for him. That was when he was a little bit younger, and I didn't think he was really hardcore on anything. Had I known that, it would have been a different story. But I thought it was more on pills than anything, and I really was not educated enough to know what these things do to you.
Right.
But he was actually using back then, and I didn't even know it. I did not know he was using heavy until I went into my mom's condo and found 22 hypodermic needles under the bed used.
Oh, my God.
And my mom wanted to say, oh, well, he does steroids. That's still illegal, okay? But I know it's not steroids. I know what he's using.
You knew what it was. Yeah.
I found a bag of heroin in the room.
Yeah.
Okay? So she was in denial back then. And then, he overdosed. And that's how she found out he was using. Because she had to wake him up in his own vomit from overdose.
Oh, God.
A lot of heroin addicts vomit, and when they overdose,
choke to death.
Yeah,
or they fall asleep on their back and vomit and choke to death. I've heard of that happening a lot of times. When my husband, when my son went into the recovery place, he said because they have rooms and it's like a house and they each have their own room. And, he went they're supposed to clean the rooms, they're supposed to clean the rooms before they come in. He looked under his bed and there was hypodermic needles under his bed. He said they didn't clean it. Whoever was in that room before him, I guess what must have been doing, drugs in there, because he said he found a whole stash of hypodermic. So they didn't clean the room. So he took everything out, washed everything, because he was scared he'd step on a hypodermic needle. He's scared he'd lay in bed and there'd be a needle in the bed or something. So he stripped the bed and he cleaned the whole room. But yeah, so they didn't clean up his room. He said, Mom, you wouldn't believe how many needles there were under my bed.
Yeah. I don't know what's the deal. Why they can't clean that shit up. My brother did the same thing. Throw the needles under the bed. I don't think if that happened at my home, I would completely lose it. I'm a little bit more, I'm kind of understanding, a little bit more understanding now, but my brother was a sloppy drug addict. Okay. He would leave buds from pot all over the place, beer all over the place, heroin, the hypodermic needles. I would find a pill here and there, at my mom's. And I just said, Mom, if your doors ever get kicked in, you're going to jail with them. Just letting you know that. Because you're allowing this to happen under your roof.
Did he ever try to, if you had any kind of drug in your house, would he try to steal it from you?
Yeah, the first thing we kind of noticed with Adrian is that he was, anytime if you had a medicine cabinet, that's the first thing. He would use the bathroom in your house. That would be as an excuse. He would go in to your medicine cabinet. He would say he has to go to the bathroom. That's the first thing he would ask. And then he would raid your medicine cabinet and take whatever medication you had. He would steal them. He would always steal my dad's dental medication. He stole Klonopin from a friend of mine that was actually prescribed to her, and Vicodin, from my sister that was prescribed to her. So yeah, you wanted to keep, if you knew Adrian was going to be in your house, you had to put that medicine cabinet, you had to really lock that shit down.
Lock it up. Yeah.
You would take everything.
Yeah. So so
when was the last time you saw him before he like passed away? Did you know he was actively like doing
I knew he
drugs?
was off and on it. Like he would get on Suboxone. I know my dad was giving him a really hard time. And actually, there was one instance over in the spring where my dad was just being such an asshole that he refused to bring my brother to get his Suboxone from the pharmacist. And he was just being like that much of an asshole. And I stepped up and I told my mom, I'm like, I'm like, if he needs help getting his Suboxone, let me know. I'll bring him because I don't want to see him relapse. And it turns out, when he got his Suboxone and he was living with my dad, he had people bringing him pills from New Orleans to the country, the whole time he was staying with my dad. So he was not only on Suboxone, but he was chasing it with other drugs.
Well, I heard you say that his drug dealer sent him pictures.
Yeah.
Of the drugs. Do you think that contributed to, because I know with my son, I mean, that's all he hung out with was drug dealers and drug addicts.
That was my
that's
brother.
all he had.
Yeah, all of his friends were in drugs or drinking or can't actually, recoup. He burned every bridge. You know when something's wrong, when that kid burns every bridge in the family.
Right.
When everybody's just given up or, you kind of know when they don't have a good relationship. They've burnt every bridge. They've borrowed money, never returned it, stolen. Something's going on. They're trying to fill something. And that was my brother. And then his friends were kind of into the same thing. And I remember when they went to my friend, we were all friends with Michael's funeral, all the kids that were there were users. That all the people that went to that funeral were users. Half of them died of addiction, heroin overdoses, that went to Michael's funeral. Watching my brother buried probably about a dozen friends to addiction, and that still didn't open up his eyes. He probably was like, oh, I'm strong. I can beat this. My mom will just pull me from an overdose. I'll just, we got Narcan. What can, hurt now?
Yeah, I think they think they're invincible. I know my son did.
You just think it's not going to happen to you.
Yeah. They have to, I don't know, I guess the thing that scares me the most is the relapsing part. I'm just so scared every day. I'm scared my daughter's going to call me and say, he's relapsed,
Well, is he working right now?
Not yet. They told him when he went into recovery. Well, he went to school and he passed all his courses, and he said it's like, I guess now that he's not doing drugs, that's all he has time to do is study. So he passed in the highest percentage of the class. But now, since this COVID is going on, he had to do most of his classes. I think it was 2 hours a day of actual classes, and then the rest is working on his, his own. But he said he was like he had the highest marks in his class.
Well, that's good.
I guess he's thinking straight now, he's
so
actually able to think.
Dinner?
Pardon me?
How often do you cook dinner? I have to
How
ask
often do I?
2020 this. How often do you cook dinner? You cook dinner.
Do I cook dinner?
Yeah.
I've been cooking dinner every night.
Invite him over a couple of times a week to have a family dinner with you and your husband and talk with him over the dinner table. That's how I talk to my son. If I try to go in his room while he's streaming or gaming, it ain't going to work. But when I cook, we talk, and I think my brother didn't have that. And that's really what hurt him the most. We didn't have that family environment towards the end. He didn't get that love ever from my dad. Like my dad would cook, right? And the kids would eat at the kitchen table, and my dad would go eat at the bar in the house away from us. And maybe if you cook him a Sunday dinner, or y'all talk it out on the porch.
Yeah.
A family, like if he knows that he's welcome and he's loved and accepted.
Well,
And
He
you're
does
proud.
know he's loved because his sister loves him to death. Like they're
Mhm.
camping right now. They're all camping. All the kids, him, his
Mhm.
sister, her husband. Um, he doesn't get along with his ex, so she's not there, but his son is there. And when I talked to him tonight, he was like, he just looks so good,
Mhm.
and it just, but tonight listening to you, my heart just goes out to you. I
Thank
just,
you.
you were so brave to go up there. I just don't know if I could have
Oh,
done what you did tonight,
I was
because
nervous.
I know, I actually know, like, how my daughter would feel. I know my daughter wouldn't have been able to do what you did tonight. So I mean, you're helping a lot of people by
Well, if
talking
anyone
about
speaks
it.
to me, I'm there if you
Um,
want to call me anytime.
yeah, that I don't know it from a sister's point of view, but I know it from a family's point of view, and I
Yeah.
think families suffer a lot during addiction, and you know it from both sides because you
Mhm.
had an addiction yourself
Mhm.
to gambling, and not what Laura said, but I know
No,
you had addiction to gambling, and
yeah.
then you had, um, you've lost your brother. So you know it from both sides. You know what it's like to be an addict, and you know what it's like to be the sister of an addict that
And a dad,
overdosed. And
my dad's an addict, and both my biological parents are addicts, and my sister's an addict. So
oh,
it kind
that's
of
right. You were adopted, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah. And I know my
adopted. Yeah.
biological parents. They were
Okay.
at the funeral. Yeah.
So
Um,
what's your dad addicted to? Is it
um,
alcohol?
the current dad, the one that adopted me, is an alcoholic, and
Okay.
pot smoker, of course. So alcoholic meaning like you can't even be in the same room with him once he's had that bottle of wine and a half. So can't
Right.
even get a complete
So
sentence out of him.
it's environmental too.
He
Like, I
used to
mean,
do
it's not
cocaine.
only biological, but it's environmental. If you're brought up around that, you're going to pick it up, I think. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah.
my opinion.
Well, that's
No.
the nature versus nurturer. Nature
Mhm.
versus nurturer. You
Right.
have 50% genetic when it comes to addiction. It's passed through the genes. And
Hmm.
then the other 50% is your environmental factors play a toll in that. So you have as a parent, you have to make sure to nurture that child and to try to mold them and bring them up in a good background and a healthy, stable environment, meaning no toxic fighting. And, we had all of that.
Right.
When they got divorced, it turned into, y'all think the drama on here is bad. The drama in our house when we were children was far worse than anything you could ever imagine. I watched my dad beat the shit out of my mom. I watched my mom go at my dad. I watched the threatening. I watched my dad snort cocaine in front of us.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I watched my mom, she would get physically abusive sometimes to us. And that's all extremely toxic to have children being raised. That's not a good environment on either part. So
Hmm.
if you and I had look, if I could have escaped my environment back then, I could have, but I was too young and dumb. I didn't know.
Hmm.
I just knew it wasn't right. So you as a mom and your husband, when you're raising that child, you just have to make sure they're in a good, healthy, loving environment. And that's very hard to come by these days. You either have a single parent environment where you're not going to have everything that child needs, the mom's struggling, or dad's bringing home people. There's
Hmm.
always something, It's very hard to find a mom and a dad in a nice, good family home where
Hmm.
money
Like
is not everything. Yeah.
like Leave It to Beaver, June and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I don't think it exists anymore. Where I kind of like this society is like a lot different than when our
There's,
parents were
right.
raising, at least mine. I mean, you're younger than me. You're young enough to be my daughter almost.
Well,
But like when I was raising my kids, it was different than when my parents raised me. So
Right. My escape was going to my friend's house to get away from everything. And that, I really would like my friend's parents, and and that was my escape. Then they had to send me. I tried to kill myself to get out of it, like to get out of it all the way. I attempted suicide, and that didn't work. That made it even worse. I had to go see a psychologist, and they said that it was a cry for help. That's what he told my parents. It was a cry for help. Well, how can you you're telling two people that already have mental issues that I'm crying for help, So my escape to get away from everything, because I was so desperate to get out of my family environment, was to dance. I was able to get the money to get the hell out.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I did.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that.
When I became a parent, I knew I had to get them away from it. I had to get my child.
You do what you have to do.
Right. And I don't regret it for a second. And I mean, I think there's people that conduct themselves a lot worse than any dancer I've ever met, that I meet. They have some really trashy people that I've come across. And
we talked about this the other day. Anything you've done in your past makes you who you are today.
Exactly.
Like we talked about domestic violence, and people were asking me if you had to go back and change anything, and I said I wouldn't even change that, because it made me who I am today. Plus, I have 2 children from that marriage. So why would I want to change that? Because then I wouldn't have those kids, and I love my kids. But, you being a dancer, that's the same thing. I mean, it made you who you are today. So why would you want to change that? It's like saying, would you change being a photographer?
Right.
No, because it's something that you were good at, and you like doing, you enjoy doing it, and you had a goal. You had a goal.
Yeah, and I wanted to escape my reality, and
that
was a great way to do it. And I've had dysfunction in my life my whole entire life. So my reasoning, and a lot of people still question that, for coming on here and making peace with people from both sides, is because I had so much dysfunction in my real life, my whole entire life. I had to fight with my parents my whole entire life. Why would I want to come here and fight with strangers and hate people for no reason? I've been controlled my whole life, over controlled, told how to parent when they didn't even know how to be parents. And I had to break away from that, So that's some reasoning as to why I did what I did, where I wanted to make peace. I figured that would be the right thing to do, to be able to be cordial with everyone. And you know what? It worked. So obviously my method works. I couldn't say that for many other people, but I could say it for myself, that I'm at peace and I'm happy. I'm actually comfortable coming into chats and saying hi. And I'm comfortable talking about my problems online. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I
heard what you said about, like, not going back into the drama and the hatefulness on here, because it's so hard. It's so hard because we forget that we tend to forget that there are people behind the keyboards. It's just like words on a screen. Well, I think for some people it's words on a screen, and we forget that there are real people on here that have real feelings and real lives.
Right.
And the unkind words that we say to people could affect them adversely and could, steer them towards something like, terrible, to do terrible things.
The only reason I'm alive right now is because of my kid. That's the only reason why I have a pulse, is because of my child. I have to live for him because he has no one else. He has only me. So the last thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to let anything get under my skin as much as it would, you know, if I didn't have that to worry about. I, around COVID, when COVID was first coming through, and I literally was not working and losing my mind and kind of did not know what to think about everything. I was on the edge. Like I was there. Like I was on the edge, not even being able. I could not mentally process the shit that was going on YouTube. The going real life, the craziness that was happening. You know, first of all, this isn't Russia. No one's going to control me. It will never happen. First of all, my parents didn't control me. They tried, even after I became an adult. I'm certainly not going to let a stranger do it. So the crazy shit that I was seeing, I was just like, this is crazy. I can't deal with this anymore. I can't process this, you know. Then COVID, then all the rioting, then you know, the evil things that people would say about one another. And I had to take a break and a few steps back. And then I knew things were getting bad in my family. You know, I knew I was getting ready to go back to school. And I knew that was going to take up probably about 98% of my time.
Right.
It has. It has.
It just seems like people in here or on here just want to fight. And
you don't feed into them. You get away from it. Don't even recap or clap back.
No, that's not going on anymore. We've been having fun on here. Right. And like I said, there's so much more in my real life going on that I don't have time to focus on like any kind of, you know, hatefulness on here. So it's a distraction for me to go on here and have fun in the mornings and have coffee with. And I'm telling you, 90% of the people that come in here in the mornings are really nice. They just want to come in and talk about whatever we talk about that day. It could be, you know, painting your toenails. I don't know. My ghosts. You've heard us talk about my ghosts and my things like that, and stuff like that. And you know, and it's just like kind of like just like you would talk, you go out for coffee with your girlfriends and talk about whatever. And that's what I want. I don't want to get involved in any of the drama anymore. I just don't. It's just too hard for me.
When I ghost somebody, I don't fucking talk about them. I won't have anything to do with them. You know?
Right.
I won. I won. I don't want to talk about you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And that's it. Done deal. You know, if you want to recap on everything, refer to me as an ex-friend, refer to me as an evil person. Good for you. You do that. But I won't be saying anything because remember, I'm ghosting you. That's the whole point. So when these people talk about you, just ghost them. Don't even bring their names up. Ignore them. And bam. You know, I don't hate anyone.
Nope. You can't hate people that you've never met. You can't. It's impossible.
I don't hate anyone. I don't, you know, I just want to be at peace and I don't want to be fucked with. But
on the other hand, I love a lot of people that I've met on here.
I do. So, I do care for a lot of people. Yeah. I they have some amazing people that have the biggest hearts.
That's what my husband said to me too one day. He said when I was getting really upset and, you know, doing these stupid tit for tat things, he'd say, "Why do you put yourself through that?" You know, this because he doesn't understand. First of all, he doesn't understand YouTube at all. Like he just thinks it's ridiculous. But he'd say, why do you do this to yourself? And I said, you know, for one person or two people that are real nasty, I said, there's 100 that are really nice and I enjoy talking to and I look forward to seeing. So there's that. So I think if you can distance yourself from the negativity, you're okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah, like that. When you know, going into criminal records, touching real lives, talking about kids, drug addictions. You know, I just think it just needs to all stop because it's toxic. And you know what? Okay, so if that person's a 20-time felon and has 1,000 mugshots, who gives a fuck? Okay, they're not watching your kids. They're not in your house. They're not. Who cares? Get over it. Get over it. You know, no one here, and I'm a firm believer in this. No one here has clean hands. Okay, no one in here has a perfect life. No one in here is free from addiction, or can honestly say addiction hasn't touched their life in some kind of way. So you shouldn't be judging other people that had the same issues of you. Y'all both had the same issue. Why even talk about it in a negative way when you were fighting the same demons the other person was? And I see hypocrisy all over it. Like, it's just all over YouTube.
Well, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It shouldn't matter what you did. I don't care what you did yesterday. I care what you do today and how you treat me today.
Right.
And I'm not going to hate you for something you said about me a week ago, even if you said, "Oh, Carla, she's such a bitch. I can't stand her. She's boring." No, but you wouldn't say it. But I'm just saying, if you said that a week ago and you came into my chat today, I would say, "Hi, Alicia." You know what I mean? I just don't want people sending me screenshots and saying, this one's talking about you, that one's talking. I don't care. I don't care.
Forgiving someone is called being an adult. That's what this community fails to see. I forgive someone because we had a beef and we made peace, and it's called being two-faced in some other ways. You know what? It's called being a fucking adult, okay? And maybe you should try it, okay? I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying in general, it's called being a fucking adult, okay? I'm willing to forgive someone that I had a beef with. That's called being a fucking adult. And you know what? I'm not going to, this isn't a playground. This is the real world. It may be on YouTube, but it's the real world. These are real people behind computers on keyboards. And people need to freaking just be careful about what they say, because you don't know who's over that could just, come over more and just lose it one day,
Well, that's what I'm saying to myself. Like, is it worth it? It's not worth it. And I don't care what you did in your past life. Why should I care what you, if you got arrested, if you went to jail for, robbing a bank, I don't care. It doesn't
define them now,
No.
People clean up and go to rehab and they get better. Their characters get better.
I don't want anybody judging my son because he was an addict. You know what I mean? So I'm not about to judge anybody else because they've had an addiction, or they have a DUI, or I don't know, whatever the case may be. I don't want to know what you did in your past life.
That person has.
No.
Who cares? Who cares? Yeah. Like, who cares? It's not like they got mug shots from robbing a store, or killing someone. Please.
Right. Yeah.
So it's all irrelevant. It's an all irrelevant factor here on YouTube, because basically the people that are creators here are here to entertain us. Their mug shots, it's not like a prerequisite to get onto YouTube and become a creator. We're in chats to mingle and
make friends.
Right.
I am anyways. Right. I don't know about you, but I'm just here to make friends, and just because I don't even consider it subscribers. The people that come in my chat, I consider my friends. Like, you know what I mean? They come in here, they want to talk, they want to have coffee, and that's it. Like, that's as far as it goes. I don't need to know about their lives. I don't need to know if someone comes in my chat if they have a record. What am I going to do? Have a bouncer at the door saying, "Hey, have you ever been arrested? Oh, you can't come in my chat today."
I'm trying to picture my brother, if he was still alive, how he would handle YouTube. Because he would probably be like, "Look up my fucking records, bitch." He would be like that. He's got the attitude that I have. I don't care. Like that. That's not. Who gives a shit?
Right.
I'm looking at their content. They're entertaining me. Obviously, I don't care what they've done in a past life. As long they're not in my house watching my kids, rating it or going.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what they've done.
No.
that's just the craziness that goes on, and that's why I backed away. I was like, Carla, I couldn't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
I was
But
watching
there's and somebody asked me too, what community are you in? I had to think about it because I'm not crime. I'm not true crime. I came here for true crime, but I'm not. That's not who I am myself. I'm actually. I said, I guess if there's a coffee community, there's a coffee community. That's a community I'm in.
Yeah.
Coffee and talk. That's about it. I don't think I'm in any time. I go and watch a lot of true crime. I go and watch a lot of cooking shows. I've learned how to crochet on here because YouTube can be very educational.
It is.
You can learn a lot of things.
Right.
Like you can learn, what to plant in your garden,
Right.
how to, make good lasagna, how to can.
A lot. Really.
How to make wine. You can learn a lot of things on YouTube. Like it's not just like drama and, bickering. There's a lot of I have made so many things. I've learned how to crochet on YouTube, and I made so many things from tutorials and stuff. Anything you want to learn. I mean, because there's a big, big, big wide world out there. We don't need to be stuck in a little piece of this community and just say we're not going anywhere else. I go everywhere now. Like I go in a lot. I like a lot of the smaller channels.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the smaller creators channels. I go in there a lot now. Like, because I enjoy the personal, the interaction, the personal interaction. I don't know, I just do. But when you go in a chat where there's like 600 people, it's kind of hard to, because it goes by too fast. It goes by too fast for me. I'm dyslexic, so it goes by too fast.
Here. And I wanted to say hi to Remy, and thank you, Remy, for reaching out to me. And Mary Wanzen, I think that's how you say it. There's a lot of people that did reach out to me that I didn't name. I'm sorry. But Remy,
I messaged you on Facebook.
You did?
Messenger. Yeah, in Messenger. I did. I think it was like the day I found out. So check your Messenger. It's there.
Thank you.
And it was from there. But I knew you were, I didn't expect you to get back to me because I knew that a lot of people are probably, trying to reach you. But I was thinking about you, and I just wanted you to know that I did reach out to you. But I didn't want to bother you either.
I was in a state of shock, and
definitely.
And I guess that's a normal feeling. And then, with all being said, I want you to be able to reach out to me now about your son.
I will.
I will. And maybe try to have a family day with him now that he's in recovery and he's looking good. You could tell he's all filled out. As a mom, you kind of know what your kids are into when they lose weight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what he looked like when he was very unhealthy. And that was when he was in the
and if he can't sit down and he's speeding, you kind of know these things. If they're constantly like clapping their mouth, and usually your mouth dries up on that.
Yeah. Oh, they have cotton mouth.
Cotton mouth, and it dehydrates you. So,
but it does help. Like you are helping people because it does help. And I heard you say people reach out to me because it does help to talk about it. Sometimes you don't want to talk to your, sometimes you don't want to talk to your direct family about it because you don't want to worry them. Let them know how upset you are and stuff like that. So sometimes it helps to reach out to somebody that's been through, what you've been through. I'm not saying that you're a mother of an addict, but you've been through it with your brother, so you kind of know how the family feels. So it helps.
Been studying this for the last 3 years and kind of talking to people about it the last few weeks before my brother died. Actually was talking to recovery drug, to talk, looking at different alternatives and things, because I knew things were getting bad, at home. But and we have several addicts in the family that actually need to get help that have not got help because
Right.
of them are in denial. So it was just like, what do I do? I want to do something to help people for free. I don't want, there's so many people out there that can't afford to get good help.
Well, from what I saw tonight, and I didn't talk much in the chat because, I mean, I was just, listening. But from what I've seen tonight, and I was reading the chat a lot more than, and while I was listening to you. From what I've seen tonight, you helped a lot of people. And even in here tonight, coming on my panel, you've helped me and you've helped other people that have been in my chat tonight, because there's a lot of us out there that kind of need some moral support or just someone to just talk about that knows what we're going through. You know what I mean? Like, you've been there, and I know it's really, I mean, you're so brave. Like, I'm so proud of you for what you did tonight. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I am. Like, I was really proud of you. Like, I'm just like, because I honestly, I couldn't have done it. I know I couldn't have done it.
Well, you're coming from the mom's end, so a mom, I don't know
Yeah.
if I could do it with my son that died. I may be a little hysterical for a good few months, maybe years, because it's a mom's perspective on her son. But this was my brother, and I always kind of prepared myself that one day my family would get a phone call of him being either murdered or overdosing. I knew that his fate would not end in a good way because of his serious addictions, mental illness, and his temper. He had a serious chemical imbalance before drugs were even a part of his life. And
do you think he was manic depressive or bipolar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He was definitely those. I'm not even a doctor, and I told my mom when I was a kid, I was like, he's got a chemical imbalance, Mom. And this is when it was taboo to talk about it. You don't talk about your child having a mental illness. No. But mental illness is in our family big time. Big time. So, and my mom, she did a good job covering things up because she didn't want people to know. She was embarrassed.
Well, I just found out my son, while he was in rehab, was diagnosed as ADHD.
I have that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, and so I have some guilt about that. Why didn't I know?
Oh.
How come I didn't find out when he was young that he was ADHD? Should I have known?
How old is he?
He's 31. He's going to turn 32 tomorrow.
I've had it with dyslexia my whole life. And you know how I found out? My freshman year of college.
Wow.
My parents didn't even think to even look at that. I had to find out myself because in my test taking, the teachers are trained to be able to tell. And your test taking and your when you give them, when you're writing a paper, how you write, how you process things is how they are able to tell if you are suffering from that. I had both. How you're able to desk and be able to concentrate.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I not see this?
Most parents
why am I finding out when he's 31 years old that my son is ADHD?
Okay,
like, why didn't I not see this?
My son's 24. Back in the day, we didn't really, I put my son on Adderall and it was just, just coming out like with that. And I didn't like the effects of it. He came down from it and he would get angry. He lasted 3 weeks on that drug and I took him off and just changed his diet and it worked. Okay. But back when I was growing up, right, they didn't even have that. It was called learning disability or behavior disorder. That's the two classes you were put in when you had ADHD or if you had dyslexia in general. You either had a learning disability or you had a BD. Those were the classes that they put you in and they would separate students by that when I was growing up. So parents they weren't able to identify it.
I think they've come a long way because
Yeah.
my daughter's son, my grandson, is diagnosed as ADHD, and he's only he's 5, and they've already diagnosed him.
Mm-hmm.
But my son is 31, and I'm just finding out that's what he has.
Well, he could have just been a hyper kid. Was he always in this shit? As a kid, getting into things, taking things apart, couldn't concentrate. Was he like that? Because that's what my son was like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I didn't know that was ADHD. I just thought he was being a goofball.
Right.
You know?
Andrew grew out of it, and I changed his diet around. And a lot of that has to do with diet as well, but also in the brain. So some drugs will actually, when your kids are coming down, they get angry and mean, and my heart palpitates. And I didn't like those effects. So I was like, nope, you're getting off of everything, and I'm just going to change your diet around. But sometimes diet doesn't even work.
Right.
And you're forced to stay on Adderall, you know, and they have different drugs. I don't know all of them, but
see, when my son was young, I mean, you didn't take your kid to a doctor because they had behavioral problems. Like, right. Here's an example. His first day of school, he quit. He came home. I took him to kindergarten. He came home. And the school called me and they said, your son's not here. And so I found him because I walked him to school, and he found his way while he was walking back home. And I said, what are you doing? He said, they made me sit down. Like they wouldn't let me get up. So he left. He just said, I'm going home. See ya. That's my son.
That with his friends in high school. They just walked off the playground and left and came home, and he didn't know I was home that day. And he came home, and I was like, you got a rude fucking awakening. You're getting ready to bring your ass right back to school, you know. But I think especially boys, they tend to test their parents a little more than girls. To me, I think, you know, somebody with a daughter might argue that fact with me, but I think with boys, with moms, they just press the buttons just a little bit more further. And in school, Andrew was pretty good. He made great grades, but he would always try to, like, you know, press those buttons a little far. And then as a parent, I just had to be a real asshole sometimes and be like, no, I'm not going to put up with this shit. You're going to do this or you don't get nothing. He was very hyper. And the school was actually demanding that I put him on Adderall.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm changing his diet. And when I saw him come down from that, I was like, no way.
That's what my daughter said, that the doctors wanted to put her son on drugs. And she said, no frickin' way.
Yep.
I'm not going to have my,
you know,
because they said that he needed it because he had anger issues.
Yeah. And
but now he's getting therapy. So he's getting therapy, proper diet. I guess they take some things out of their diet. I can't remember what it is. She's got a list of things that aggravate his condition.
Yeah, red dyes and sugars. And
something with red dye. Red dye was one of them. So she's being really careful because she doesn't want him. She doesn't want his whole personality to change. You know what I mean? Like when he's loving, he's so loving. But when he gets angry, he gets very, very angry. And there's no calming him down. I mean, I love him to death, but he does have a temper on him.
Yeah, Andrew had a little bit of a temper. I took that shit right out of him real quick. And then, you know, now he doesn't have any kind of temper. He's actually easy to, you know, at 24. He grew out of it probably around freshman year of high school. He grew out of it to where, you know, he was just doing like little miscellaneous things in high school that every kid does. I think, you know, they cut up a little bit, but then they get over it. I've seen even some of the best kids, you know, be mischievous sometimes. But he was very hyper. And grade school, I was working at the school, and they were telling me you have to put him on something or he can't come back. And I was working at the school, and I'm just like, wow. And then in middle school, it was a little bit of a challenge. He was a good student. He made straight A's, but he was a busybody. You know, his mind was speeding faster than what he was. He was just, you know, and he became bored in school, and that's when kids get mischievous and start doing things. You know, so.
But we don't always want to see, you know. I guess, I don't know. I never saw it. I just saw it as him being goofing off, you know. I didn't see it as ADHD. And I mean, he didn't even know. He said, Mom, they diagnosed me. And because they get medical and everything when they're in that rehab, you know. So that's what they said, that, you know.
And maybe that, you know, did they put him on something for it?
I'm not sure if they put him on anything. I don't think he's on anything right now. Nothing. I don't think they wanted him to take any kind of medication right now.
That might help, you know, now that he's discovered that he has that could also be a factor of why he was always speeding. Because some people with that constantly speed, their mind's constantly spinning. It's like a hamster wheel, and it's continuously going, and they can't concentrate, and they're everywhere.
Well, that's why he quit school when he was in kindergarten. He said they wouldn't let me get up. They wanted him to sit down at his desk, and they didn't want him to get up. So he just said, I'm out of here. Goodbye. See ya. His school calls me and says, your son's on his way home because he quit. He quit today. I'm thinking, did you expel my son? No, he quit.
That's, I mean, I don't know. Every parent kind of goes through that. I went through it a little bit, and then, you know, he grew out of it eventually, and he seems to be okay now. I think he's got, actually right now, I think he has dyslexia, because he's handling math the same way I did. And that's a
did you say you were dyslexic?
Yeah. And the way he's taking in things and learning is the same way I did. And that just tells me right there, he's got dyslexia. And it sucks because it takes you sometimes double the time to take things in and learn them, rather than the average person that might not suffer with that.
Right.
Yeah. I hope that he gets the help he needs. I hope that you get some kind of closure from all of this.
I really thank you for coming up. I really appreciate it. I felt like a big blubbering baby. I just couldn't sleep after watching you tonight. And then you came down, you came off panel, and I'm like, oh, I need to talk. I just need to get this out. Like, I was crying when you showed that picture. When you showed that picture at the end, I'm like, oh my God, I got all choked up.
I sent Diana's funeral pictures, and she's like, I can't do it. I can't, you know, and I don't, you know, there's a lot of people that just can't, when you see a funeral picture, like someone in their coffin, you know, you just lose it. And I told my mom.
How was your mom, by the way? How is your mom?
She's not doing very well. And I've tried to kind of be present, and we went out to eat, and I talked to her about things, but she's in that denial phase where she thinks that it's all my dad's fault and that Adrian did nothing wrong. And, you know, you got to put some of the blame on the person that was doing the drugs, but then there are factors from both parents to why Adrian is sick. And, you know,
I mean, my ex-husband, because my husband now is not his biological father, but my ex-husband and I, you know, I was an enabler, and his father was, you know, I was a victim of domestic violence. So, you know, he had to go through seeing that when he was growing up. So I think we both contributed to, you know, what happened to him, you know why he ended up the way he did. You know, I enabled him by giving him money
My mom did
all the
that.
time.
Yeah.
And I think, he has some post-traumatic stress from growing up in a family that was very dysfunctional,
Mhm.
But then my daughter did too, and she's perfectly yeah, they're two different personalities, totally. My daughter is like his mother, like she mothers him, like probably you did to your brother. I don't know if your
Yeah,
brother is
we
older or
were
younger.
opposites. I never had a chemical dependency. I tried Coke. I will be honest. I didn't. It was like, okay, and I'm done, just like that.
Right.
I tried shrooms because it was put in my Kool-Aid. All right, never will do that again. And I was able to stop that and never touch anything ever again because fuck that. I don't like vomiting. I don't like the way something controls you. I don't like that feeling. Others can deal with that. They're okay with that. So I was kind of like the straight one, still am, of the family. And then you have my brother who's totally the opposite. So when my mom was putting the blame on my dad, I'm like, well, he raised me too, and I'm not a drug addict. So you can't put it all on dad. You can't.
But did you mother, what I wanted to know was, did you mother your brother a little bit?
A little bit.
You...
I would tell him stop buying dope from people you don't know. And
that's what my daughter would. My daughter would mother my son. She would actually go to his house, pick him up, kick out all the drug dealers and drug addicts that were in there. She would actually go to his house, to his apartment, and kick them all out and say, "You're coming home. You're gonna eat. You're gonna eat at my house."
Huh. Yeah.
I mean, he would get mad at her, but he would go with her because she could get away with stuff that I couldn't get away with, or you know what I mean? She could, because she's younger, I guess, he would listen to her, and she just didn't care. She'd go in his house and she'd say, you out. And she would kick him out because you know what they do? Those drug addicts will just flop anywhere. They'll sleep anywhere that there's they'll sleep on the floor if you let them, you know what I mean? Because they're all homeless, most of them.
I would have got beat up if I would have did that. My brother.
Oh, really? Oh, he had a temper.
Yeah, he was physically abusive. He would have hit me if I would have did that. He would have told me to get out if I would have did that. We didn't have that relationship.
Yeah, my son was more verbally. He wasn't physically, but he would hit the wall or hit, but he would scream at her. He would get mad at her when she kicked, his little druggy friends out, but he would never hit her. He would scream and call her every name in the book. She would just ignore it and say, "You're coming home. You're going to eat," because he would go 2 or 3 days without eating.
That's what
because the drugs were more important than food.
Yeah, and when you're coming down from coke, you're starving. You could eat your hands. That's how hungry you are. Because you get that. You come down and you want to eat everything in sight. So it's not a good feeling at all. And I didn't like being controlled. I don't like a substance controlling me. This is why I postponed my surgery, because I don't want to be on those drugs that they put you on after surgery. I don't get excitement off of taking drugs. Right. I take my Adipex. I'm super happy. It gives me energy. It causes me to lose weight. I stay motivated. But I won't take illegal shit because I don't want to take the chance of going to jail, number one. And number two, I know addictions in my family. I have a genetic predisposition that I have to take care of. I can't do these things. So I don't want to end up like my brother or my sister or my dad or my parents. I don't want to do that. Right. Hopefully he will get the strength he needs to stay in recovery and not relapse, and maybe support him emotionally and invite him over, and maybe that's the first step into it. And maybe if he's got meetings to go with him.
Yeah, I agree.
Parents go,
Well, it helps talking to other people that have been through it too. Like, and I know that you've helped a lot of people tonight just by like opening up, because you've gone through, like, I think the worst, everybody's worst nightmare, worst fear, actually fear.
yeah. When that coroner called my mom, Carla, like, she had already been having heart problems before that, and her and I were going back and forth. And we were arguing because she was trying to tell me it wasn't her heart that was acting up. I'm like, Mom, your heart is the reason why you feel like dog shit right now. It's not your lungs. She kept trying to argue with me. It's not my heart. Okay. So she went to the doctors, and I was able to say, hey, the doctor said something's wrong with her heart. It's the medication they were giving her for her blood pressure, making her feel like she is dying, literally. And so they sent her home, which I got really pissed about, because when they sent her home on the same medication, she's going to have the same issues. Okay. So she was yelling at me saying, what? I'm like, whatever, Mom. I said, if you need me, call me, but I am 45 minutes away. So it's not like I can get to you right away. You're going to have to call 911 if you feel like you're having a heart attack. There's nothing that I could do right now. And she didn't want to be around me, without a mask. Like, literally, my mom has not been around anyone at all since COVID. She didn't even want me coming over there for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
She's
I've been the same. I've kind of been like, when I say quarantine, I've been really quarantining myself because I'm scared. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm scared if I catch anything, I'm going to like die of it or something. I don't know.
And that's what she's worried about. And, but she left me this message. I want you to hear it. And this is the fear of a mother that you never want to, she was.
Yeah.
This is, my mom I've heard her crying, and I know when she's pissed off at me, and I know, but when this tone happened.
Yeah, Alicia, it's Mom. I'm just calling you to let you know that Adrian is gone. Call me back.
So, whew.
Oh my God.
That I will save that for the rest of my life. I'll probably keep this phone for the rest of my life, because that right there, every emotion,
that's a mother.
Maybe he left the state.
That's a mother with a broken heart. That is a mother that's heart's torn out.
Her soul left her body that night. I thought it was going to be her telling me that my dad died of COVID, but then she wouldn't be crying.
Right.
That then I thought maybe Adrian left the state. Adrian's gone.
Yeah.
Adrian maybe left the state. Adrian died. Wait, he's been a drug user for 15, 20 years. He's been able to beat overdoses. He's been able to take heavy hardcore drugs and survive it. And he's gone? What in the hell? Gone? I thought he was doing so well. And I just had to go and die. I broke down. I had no one to talk to because she hung up. And I offered to go over there, and she didn't want me over there. And even after the funeral, she wanted to be left alone. And
that rips my heart out.
Yeah.
So sorry. Tell your mom that my heart just goes out to her. I just can't even imagine. Like, it's like they say, and God, I hope I go before my kids, because they say the worst thing can happen to a parent is to lose a child. And it doesn't matter how old the child is.
Right. And it doesn't
doesn't
matter
matter.
what they did or what they're on or anything, you know?
No.
It doesn't matter. That's your child, you know, and as much
Mhm.
as Adrian was a nuisance sometimes to our family and broke it apart with his addiction,
Mhm.
there's a part of us all that loves him deeply, and we wanted to see Adrian get better.
Well,
I didn't want to see him die. I wanted to see him
I
get
think
better.
what really broke my heart tonight was when you said there was some good in him.
There was some good in him.
Yeah, you know, and you saw it as his sister. You saw the good in him. I mean,
Right.
okay, there was some bad in him because,
Mhm.
you know, the drugs took over, but there was also, you know, your little brother, or your big brother. I don't know if he's younger or older than
He
you,
was younger than me.
but you knew who he was when you were young, when you were playing tag and when you were playing hide and seek. You know what I mean? Like you knew that little boy.
Yeah.
And
Fun little boy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at pictures of my son when he was, you know, growing up, and I'm thinking, you know, if you could go back, would anything change? What could I do anything? Could I do anything different to change it? I know a lot of people say that's like crazy to think like that, but you know, you just think about it.
Yeah. And it makes you question your own mortality. It makes you
Hmm.
question if you did what could have you done? What could you have done to save him? What did you do wrong? You know, and no one my heart's broken so bad because there was some things that were missing from Adrian's life that if he had him in his life, he would have. I'm sorry, Pizza Kitty. That's so sad. I think that if Adrian would have had them in his life, that maybe he may still be alive. Um,
Right.
you can't blame the parent. One parent can't blame the other, but there are some
No.
factors that that maybe could have helped him. Because I
Yeah.
know if my son had this issue, I would do whatever and anything it took to get the money, to get the help, the professional help. I'm not talking about state help. I'm talking about
Hmm.
whatever it would take. My friend
Hmm.
did it with her kid. He was a heroin
Hmm.
addict and coke addict, and he beat it. He beat it.
Hmm.
But he had to go through holistic therapy. He actually became a
Right.
vegan out of the whole deal and everything. He went through holistic therapy. They sent him away for 3 months. They paid
Right.
50 grand out of pocket,
Hmm.
and he got the help he needed, and it worked.
Hmm. Well, that's what we've been, you know, that we had to pay for his rehab.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we got together with my ex-husband and my husband and I, and we got, and his sister, and we
Mhm.
all put our money together and we put it in there, and like he went in December, and
Mhm.
he's in recovery now. So
Good.
it's been quite a while. Like he's been going through this. So, you
Mhm.
know, it's an my heart goes out to you. It really does,
My
because
heart goes out
I
to
just,
you because you're dealing with it now. You know.
well, yeah, well, he's in recovery, but like I said, when he went into that recovery house, when he
Mhm.
looked under his bed and there was all those hypodermic needles. So it's not always, you can go through rehab and still you're not like out of the woods. You know what I mean? Like
Well, he needs a controlled rehab where they're not going to allow him to leave. They're not going to allow him. This rehab where my friend sent her son, there were no phones allowed. They could not leave the premises. They had to eat like these natural foods. There was not a lot of freedom. That's where my brother fucked up at. He went to a state therapy where they were allowed to leave on the weekends or something. He
yeah,
broke the curfew and they kicked him out.
yeah,
So,
that's the thing where my son is now.
uh-huh.
He has to be in by, I think it's 9 o'clock. Like if unless he's only allowed to go out to like look for a job or whatever.
Mhm.
Or he's taking courses, like he took courses, he's passed them
Good.
now, but he's allowed out on the weekends, like he's camping this weekend,
Mhm.
but you know, he has to sign out and sign in, and if he doesn't sign back in at a certain time, you're out. You're not allowed to stay there. So, you
Yeah.
know, they're pretty strict about that. They
And that's why
don't
my
like
brother
just,
got kicked out.
you can't just come and go. You can't just come and go as you please. Like a lot of them think, oh, well, I'll just stay out. Like, you know, when you're growing up and you're like, you have a curfew and you're like, oh, I'll break the curfew. Mom and dad aren't going to kick us out. But yeah, when you're in a recovery place, at least the one he's in, they're strict.
And the thing
And they
with
check.
when they go to jail, don't bail them out unless you plan on putting them in a full-fledged recovery system.
Oh, no. If he relapses, he knows he's on his own.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like, you know, he's got to prove to us. We're not giving him another dime. And he's got to prove to us that he's, you know, going to straighten out because, you know, that's what the thing I've heard is so many people say that they relapsed 5 times, 10 times, whatever, how many times.
Yeah, my brother.
So he's got to prove to me, yeah, your brother, he's got to prove to me that he can, you know, make it on his own. And I don't know how long he has to stay in that recovery place, but I hope it's as long as it takes for him to be able to, you know,
There's a lot of
do what he
parents
needs
know
to do.
that, well, when their kid goes to jail, they're so quick to
bail
bail
him
them out. They'll do anything to bail
Mhm.
them out. Oh, he's in
Mhm.
jail. And guess what? That's the best place for him right now. Trust me.
Yep.
You know, it's not like he's going to prison. My brother was facing 23 years in prison, and they bailed him out. Guess where my brother was when they bailed him out? Guess. He was shooting up the very next day.
Mm.
He was. They paid an attorney to get him off the charge, right? He only had to serve a certain amount of months, but he was facing, I think, 23, 24 years for his convict. You know, he got convicted almost of it. It's on his record, okay? But they got him out of that. He gets out of jail, and he's fucking up as soon as he gets out. So
Yeah.
what did that solve? You bailed him out so he can come home and fuck up. He had meth. He was dealing, I believe it was meth and heroin and pills. He had several schedules on him.
Where was he staying?
He had his own place with a roommate. My dad
Was he
2 months ago.
Was he working?
Yeah, and then he not all the way though. Like he was working and then he would stop because of COVID.
Okay.
You know? And then he was living with my dad for about 6 months. They just didn't get along. So my dad kicked him out 2 months ago. And he was living, he got an apartment somewhere in Metairie and a roommate. And that's where he was at. He was in Metairie when he died at his place. And my mom's like, oh, well, why didn't the roommate knock on the door? He had been dead for 2 hours in the bathroom. Well, the roommate, that's not the roommate's job to be a parent and to check up on your kid. You know, it's not. He's an adult. If he's in the bathroom, he could be doing whatever in the bathroom. You know, so my mom was like, well, if he was living here, I would never let him do that. Well, it got to the point where my mom couldn't even let my brother know where she lived at. It got that, you know, because wherever my brother went, he would demolish it. He demolished her property. She let him stay there pretty much for free, and he destroyed it. So he got
like I said,
a good part of his life.
Towards just before he went into rehab, he was dumpster diving to find out if he could find anything to sell, not to steal, but to sell. That's how desperate he was for money. Because my daughter cut him off. I cut him off. We had to. Because my daughter called me in tears. Like she's begging me. She's literally begging me. She said, Mom, please, if you keep giving him money, we're going to find him dead. And because he was that bad. And so I had to I had a problem saying no. As soon as he would ask me for any money, I would be sending it to him. So when she called me and said that, my husband is the one that had to tell him no. he had to say. And then he would get excuse, well, I need money on my phone, or I need money for this, or I need money. Okay, well, send it to your sister. And he really got mad when we did that, because he said he needed groceries for him and his son. So we sent the money to my daughter, and she went out and bought groceries for me. He was so pissed off at us for doing that, because we didn't want to see him starving.
No.
But we knew if we sent him the money, where it was going to go.
Something else. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, he wasn't going to use it for groceries.
Right. It's almost an identical story. With your story is mirroring my mother's story. But now, look, her son's dead. You still have a chance to change your son. There's still,
I hope so.
He's young. He knows he's strong enough to know he has a problem, and he's getting help. Be optimistic about it. So he's getting his help. He's looking healthy. He's filling out. And now the only thing you could do is kind of nurture him.
Even his color.
Yeah.
I don't know if your brother was like that, but his color was kind of off when he was like really sick, when he was dope sick. But now his color is like so much better, and I mean, he looks so much more healthy. It's night and day.
Clammy. He just would look really clammy.
Yeah.
It was
even to touch him.
Yeah. He was
touch
doing
him even.
Suboxone at my dad's, and then taking these hardcore pills. I don't know what they were, but my dad said that when he was living over there in the country with my dad, he would have girls bringing him drugs from New Orleans and dropping them off at my dad's house for my brother, on top of him taking Suboxone.
Pizza Kitty says, not being insensitive, Alicia, but you sound like you wanted to help so much for your brother, and your mother was just being blind. No one is to blame. It was a mother's love.
It was.
Yeah, it was the same for me. I did exactly the same thing. It's so hard to say no to your children. Doesn't matter how old they are.
And the last
I'm
thing
sure
you want is your kid to be on the street. I don't back that. Because there's so many things they can get into on the streets, Yeah. And you don't want, I mean, I don't know where you live at, but the streets of New Orleans are not easy, and, a white kid, no, I'm not trying to be prejudiced here. A white kid wouldn't survive very long on the streets of New Orleans. I'm sorry, they wouldn't. And right now we're dealing with that out of one of my cousins, where she's on the streets. She's not going to make it. Adrian survived because he was street smart. He was very street. He was very hood like, but you know what? He was also dumb in a lot of ways too. He didn't have a gun to protect himself. Like towards the end, he didn't have any money.
They don't understand that these people that they're hanging out with, like the people my husband, keep saying my husband, my son was hanging out with, would kill you for for $10 to get drugs. That's what kind of people
for that. For $20. He was a priest. And they'll sleep a priest through the Peterson family, a distant uncle. Right. And you can look up the information. He died on the streets of New Orleans. They killed him. He was a priest. Over $20 over a drug deal. And not a deal, a drug. The drug dealer killed him for the $20. And then another drug deal went bad with a cousin of mine that was murdered in New Orleans for drugs. They went after his money and his drugs, and they shot him execution style. They will kill you in a heartbeat. They do not.
That's what I was worried about too, because he was having all these low lives crashing at his, because they'll sleep anywhere. Okay, because they'll rather sleep in someone's house than sleep on the street. So they'll sleep anywhere. And he was getting, his son on weekends, and my daughter actually put a stop to that. She went right to the mother. She goes, "You are not bringing that child to his house anymore because of he's hanging out," because he didn't care. And then they would eat all the food in the house, and he would have no food. and then he'd have to go to my daughter's, and she'd go, well, where's all, because she'd go out and buy him groceries. They would eat all his food and then just take off. You know what I mean? And then stuff would go missing from his house. Well, what do you expect? You have freaking drug addicts staying over there. They're going to steal.
These didn't stay at the house, but when they had heroin parties, they would all shoot up. My brother contracted hepatitis.
Oh, geez.
You know, and he caught it from his girlfriend. They were sharing needles.
Yeah.
And it's the mother of his child.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's been sober, but yeah, there's so many things that happen. Sometimes they go into like heroin houses and they're all sharing and getting high together. I just don't, I don't know how they do it.
I don't know. I think they're just so stoned that they could just get to a point where they just don't care. Like I said, my son would work until he had enough money to buy the dope. And then he would go off on a binge.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would just like he would use until he didn't have anything anymore. And then he would get fired from that job, get another job. Like he always worked under the table. And when you work under the table, they pay you less. So a lot of employers will employ, people like that because they don't have to pay them as much as, regular workers that are in a union and stuff, because he was in construction. So he could get jobs all the time. So he would just work, and then he would get fired because he would get caught, snorting cocaine or whatever he was doing at the time. And then he would get fired, but he didn't care because he knew he would get it. He could get another job, but he couldn't get a regular job like with a union or anything because he could never pass a piss test. He never passed one because, he had so much drugs in his system. So
that's been also what saved me, because I've always had drugs that I had to have a drug. I always had jobs where I always had to do a drug test. The casino, you couldn't work there with any major record, and they always drug tested you. And I, stayed clean, never had any urges to do anything. And then I fucking get a gambling problem. And I would take all my tip money, and I would make sometimes up to $500 and $600 in a night and spend it in the machine that night. I would work to spend my money on my addiction at the casino.
Well, yeah.
So I know.
I believe it.
Yeah, I was chasing my high too.
Yeah.
And it got to be where I was losing everything. It really was. But I've always had jobs where they drug test you. And except for when I was a dancer, they didn't do that. And that kept me afloat too. It was the factor of not wanting to do them because they make you throw up. They make you feel like shit when you come down, but also because I was always drug tested in my work environment.
KW, Alicia is straight.
Yeah, I'm straight.
Her brother is the one that passed away from a drug overdose.
Yeah. I think if I had a strong stomach and a tolerance to taking drugs and drinking, and if I just didn't have to worry about doing a drug test at work, I think I probably would have got sucked in. I do. Right. I do. I'm honestly saying that.
Yeah.
So I want you to call me anytime you want to speak to someone.
Okay, I will do that. And thank you so much for coming up.
To someone, he's welcome to call me. Just to have someone to talk to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll tell him that. I'm serious. I'll tell him that.
Yeah. What does he like to do in his spare time? Like, what
well, he's doing what he's liking to do right now. He's like, he told me tonight, like he wants to get, because he's put on some weight. So he's trying to get into shape by like walking and hiking and, doing outdoor stuff. So while it's still nice, so he's doing that. He says, Mom, I don't want to gain too much weight. I don't want to be fat. I want to get in shape. So he's been like,
himself, which is a positive sign.
Yeah, it is. So he likes anything outdoors. He likes fishing. He likes swimming. He likes he's outdoorsy. Like, he was a construction worker. So, he's like physical. you know, he's like a physical person. So,
Mhm. Physically fit,
yeah.
active.
Well, he's trying. Well, he wasn't when he was taking drugs. He was like skinny little
Yeah.
turd, but now he's like he's filled out, but he wants to get into shape again. Like when he was working before, when he wasn't like so bad, like
Uh-huh.
when he was just doing like smoking weed and stuff, he was in really good shape. But now he's, you know, he's kind of, you know, well, he hasn't been like he's been in rehab. Well, he was in rehab. He started rehab in December and got out in April, and now he's in recovery.
Mhm.
So, you know, so he's put on weight, but he hasn't really, you know, exercised or done any of that. He's mostly been concentrating on getting well. So, but yeah, I will let him know. I'll definitely let him know, and I'll take you up on that offer. But I think I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Me too.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. But thank you so much for coming up, Alicia. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And thank you everybody that popped in tonight and showed your support for Alicia tonight in Diane and Wendy's, because I'm sure she appreciates that. And I love you all for spending this time with me. And I'll probably be awake for a while. So if any of you go live, you'll probably see me in your chat. Yes, I am willing to. You're willing to what? Yes. What did you say? I'm sorry. I'm trying to log off. But I'm gonna log off. So thank you and good night, everybody. I'm going to try and get some sleep. That's like a big blubbering baby tonight, because like Alicia really broke my heart tonight. But I know she helped a lot of people. I don't know if someone else is going live. I'll probably be in the chat listening. Good night, Alicia. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Good night, everybody. I'm waving, by the way.